The following program is rated TV MA LSV. It contains strong language, sexual situations, and violence. It is intended only for mature audiences.
You're now tuned into a Planet Fanatics production.
Mahershala Ali. Mahershala, it looks like you brought your own hat, Mahershala. You did? What is that?
What's up and what's going on, fellow fanatics? I wanted to come in here and report on the 2019 announced Blade film from Marvel Studios getting yet again another rewrite. Now, if you've been here and you've had these conversations with me, we have talked about this quite a bit. We've talked about and covered almost all the news when it comes to Blade, and how I've said in a sarcastic way that I don't believe that this film is real. I don't believe that this is something that is on the top shelf of priorities on to-dos over at Marvel Studios. I don't think that this is something that they really want to do. But again, I've said that in a joking way, like The Flash. But I do not think that this is something that it will see the light of day, and when it does, it's going to be extremely messy when we do see it. This is the sixth rewrite that Blade has gone through, with the two-time Academy Award winning Mahershala Ali being announced in 2019, as you saw at the very beginning of this video. This is I do want to say the last time we talked about this, I called this. I said this is just the newest report, but we will have another report where it's going to get pushed back again. So again, this was announced in 2019 at San Diego Comic-Con. It had a release date for November 7th, 2025 at one point in time. The Blade has had a lot of hurdles since, a few hurdles, and I'm giving them no slack. No slack at all when I name some of these things here, because you've had ample time to fix the mistakes that were made with Blade, or the delays that were out of Marvel's control with Blade. But you've had time to come back from some of those things. So some of those things that were hurdles for Blade to come over were the obviously the COVID-19 pandemic. That was a big one in 2020. Blade was announced in 2019 at San Diego Comic-Con. So to come in 2020 and have the world completely shut down, that was a huge thing. So that's one of the big hurdles that they'd had to deal with. But later in 2022, Marvel Studios set a release date for it to be a part of Phase 5, and that was in November of 2023. Shortly after that, in September of 2022, director Bassam Tariq dropped out of the film completely, and from what we were told, it was due to a delayed schedule. In November of 2022, the film added current director Yann Demange and Logan writer Michael Green. The film was then delayed to September 6th, 2024, setting the filming for the movie in the summer of 2023. Shortly after the film's production halted, obviously, we ran into the writer's strike. So running into the writer's strike was another big delay for the film, forcing the film's release to the November 7th, what we thought was the current November 7th, 2025 release, making it then a part of Phase 5. And then in December of 2023, in an interview with EW, and this was not, I saw a lot of people saying, well, this was a positive response from Mahershala Ali from some of the other responses that we were hearing of Mahershala being upset, which we're going to get to in just a second. But this was in December of 2023, in an interview with the EW, Mahershala Ali was quoted saying, "We're working on it. That's the best I can tell you." And a lot of people were taking that quote, because that's not the only thing he did say in that quote. He went on to say that he's positive with some of the new writing and things like that. It wasn't too much more after that, but he said, "We're working on it. That's the best I can tell you." And for me, I remember when this quote came out, that was never really that positive for me, because when you look at all these other Marvel stars and they're talking about their upcoming films or their upcoming projects or what have you, they're excited about it. And they're like, "Oh, we're doing this and we're doing that." Obviously not spoiling things, but go look at Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio discuss Daredevil Born Again in some of the recent interviews, and how excited they are and how much they're sharing, as far as Vincent D'Onofrio going as far as saying, we text each other all the time about changes, about the scripts and things like that. And what you get from Mahershala Ali is, "We're working on it. That's the best I can tell you." So for me, that was never hopeful. That was never that positive. Again, you have a 2-time Academy Award winner like Mahershala Ali that is donning the role of Blade, that, again, we're going to get to this conversation that saved Marvel, but I'm going to save that. Just sit tight and we'll get to that conversation. We have new reports from Jeff Snyder claiming that the film will now be delayed until 2026. This has now been corroborated also by Daniel RPK. This is going to be, the film is going to now be delayed until 2026. And again, the last time we talked about Blade, I did say, this is just the next delay. We're going to get another delay because this film, it's not a top priority. It's not top shelf priority for Marvel Studios. Let's now get into what the script and things were, some of those earlier other rumors that were out there. And these weren't rumors, so some of those earlier reports rather that were out there about Blade and things like that. The movie has gone through at least 5 writers and two different directors, barely featuring Blade. All right. According to rumors, Mahershala Ali was upset with the script. According to rumors, Blade was going to play 4th lead in his own film. According to rumors, the fight scenes were considered to be lackluster. These are things that we've talked about. Jeff Snyder had said all these things, with reports claiming that the story at one point morphed into a narrative led by women and filled with life lessons. Blade relegated to the 4th lead in his own film. Jeff Snyder tweeted, "I'm told that the current Blade script is roughly 90 pages and features exactly 2 lackluster action sequences. Mahershala Ali is said to be very frustrated with the process. Feige said to be spread too thin." This is during those days where we're having all those conversations. Is Feige being spread too thin? I believe this may have been during those same days that the Joanna Robinson book came out, The Reign of Marvel, where she was even talking about in the book how the people were talking about how Kevin Feige is spread too thin, how there's just way too many projects and he cannot do what he once did during phases 1 through 4 rather, where he was able to, go in and say, oh, I don't like this, let's fix this, or then go on to the next film and say, oh, I don't like this, let's fix this, and then let's tweak this a little bit, or let's add this, let's remove this, whatever it was that he didn't like or wanted to just simply add. He has been spread so thin with how much Marvel is doing with all of the I think, what was it, they put out 19 projects, correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments, 19 projects from 2019 to where we currently are. It's been a lot. It's been a lot, and Kevin Feige's just been spread too thin. So this is during those same conversations there, but he goes on to say, hey, that's just what sources are telling me, don't shoot the messenger. Also, according to Variety, Ali was ready to walk, and we've talked about that as well. And that's coming from Variety. That's coming from a very credible trade. That's not coming from a scooper. That's not coming from anybody like that or a YouTuber. That is coming from a credible trade like Variety that said Mahershala Ali was ready to walk away from this role. They went on to say, we also know that Marvel also slashed the project's budget, now being less than 100 million, which is chump change to the MCU to a project like of this caliber. So this is, again, not top shelf priority, as I said at the beginning of this, for Marvel Studios. This does not seem like this should have been something that should have been so difficult to do. The last time we talked about Blade on the channel was on a live stream where I said, Marvel had a revelation. Somebody over at Marvel said, I believe it was Daniel RPK that put out the report that they said the film has been stripped down to simply Blade killing vampires. What a revelation. I said that then. What a revelation. I never knew how hard it had to be to just make a simple Blade killing vampires. That's all fans wanted to see. But then we got reports in February of 2024 that said Ali was not leaving Marvel Studios and was in fact happy with the new Michael Green script. Okay. Well, let's fast forward to May 24th of 2024. And according to Daniel Richman, Blade is undergoing another round of significant revisions following Michael Green's departure. Marvel is looking for a new writer to significantly revise the script. However, he says Marvel has finalized the overall story. He also confirms the early reports that the filming is expected to begin later this year in Mexico or Brazil. Additionally, casting for a new male main villain is underway. So, as I've said before, and I've seen these arguments on Twitter where people have said, I actually just recently saw this argument. I'm not going to put out who it was. I'm not going to give him that type of attention. But where he was having a back and forth with someone on Twitter and was saying how you have all these black heroes, because they were having a T'Challa conversation. He's like, well, why are you complaining about that? You have all these black heroes in the MCU already that are getting all this praise, that are getting all this attention, but you guys just don't want to pay attention to them at all. Here we are with another black hero that was announced in 2019. 2019, almost 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago, that this character was going to be introduced into the MCU, and yet it's another delay, pushed back and pushed back. And at the first few pushbacks, I was like, you know what? I want them to get this right. It's fine. It's a pushback as long as they're making the necessary steps to making sure that this film is absolutely the way it needs to be. I'm cool with the pushbacks. But here we are on pushback number 6. And yet again, it seems like Marvel's priorities when it comes to their characters of color is not top priority for them at all. You've got T'Challa, who is dead in the MCU. You've got Blade, who has not even made an MCU debut. I can already hear you. He made a voice debut in the Eternals. We don't even know what the MCU Blade is going to look like, and it's been almost 6 years. You've got Monica, who is in a different universe, displaced in a different universe. You've got, I know it's not the same thing, but we were having this conversation during the X-Men 97 run. You got Jubilee, who got way more attention than Storm. You got Storm, who the conversation's happening on Twitter, not my words, but got relegated to being a mammy, cheering on her white friends, being the cheerleader for her white friends. You got Bishop, who was the, and not my words, but I'm going to give credit here for my guy over at Back of the Bus, Marcus said, was no more than a time-traveling Uber. You've got Sam, who we're about to currently go and watch in Brave New World, who's powerless and couldn't even get a bank loan in his own Disney Plus series. Am I missing black heroes? You've got Ironheart, who's gotten pushed back. Am I missing some more? You've got Rhodey, Armor Wars. Is the film happening? Is it not happening? We don't know. It's not top priority for Marvel Studios. So when we have these conversations about representation and what we're wanting to see and why we're screaming recast T'Challa and why all this is important, this is why. Because we're at yet another pushback. Marvel filed bankruptcy, which we all know because during that bankruptcy is what subjugated Marvel to having to get rid of so many of their characters, which is why we saw in the early 2000s why so many different companies owned these different characters. But it was not until Blade, portrayed by Wesley Snipes, the black, half-human, half-vampire fictional hero that saved Marvel in real life. Blade not only paved the way for the most recent decade of superhero films, but also pulled Marvel out of one of its darkest times in its company's history. Without Blade, arguably, and you can argue it, I'm saying it is what it is, without Blade, there would be no MCU. And in my opinion, and I believe this is the opinion of many others out there as well, that Blade should have way more priority over a Thunderbolts, over Echo. What are some other, over Wonder Man, over Agatha, over What If. But yet Blade continues to be pushed back and pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. At one point, again, reports as you heard, Mahershala Ali was upset and ready to walk. A script he was happy with, written by Michael Green is now gone. What is going on with the Blade film? Is Kevin Feige involved with the film? Is he not involved with the film? We heard reports early on that he wasn't even involved with the film. When he saw the script, he was like, oh no, we've got to change this because according to Jeff Snyder, it was only 90 pages. So I don't know what's going on with the Blade film. I don't know what's going on with Marvel's lack of care when it comes to their characters of color. And you can debate that down in the comments on your own. But this is yet again more evidence that we are seeing that when it comes to characters of color, it is not top shelf priority over at Marvel Studios. And again, Blade has made his debut, sure, his voice debut within the MCU when we watched Eternals. But I remember sitting in the movie theater when I watched Eternals. I remember the first post-credit scene. No, this was the I don't remember, whichever one. I remember when Harry Styles showed up, everybody, cheered. But I remember when the implication, where everybody that, of course, those people that were knowledgeable enough in the theater to know that was Blade talking to Dane Whitman, that everybody was like, that was cooler than the other post-credit scene because of where that's going. Everybody was super excited for that. I remember sitting there and thinking to myself, that was way more exciting than the film itself for me. But yet again, Blade is pushed back. One of the last things that I wanted to mention that we've talked about on my channel before is Mahershala Ali is not getting any younger. We've had these conversations before. At the time of SDCC, Mahershala Ali was 45 years old. Mahershala Ali is now 50 years old. He's not getting any younger, and we would like to give him his flowers while we can. This is a 2-time Oscar-winning actor that you saved, as you saw at the very beginning of this video, for last of your announcements at SDCC. And you saw all of the expressions on all the actors' faces when Mahershala Ali walked out. This is not hard to do. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes at Marvel Studios. I don't know what's being told to Mahershala Ali. I would love to hear from him. How is he feeling now with another rewrite? 5 years gone by. 45 years old. And as we know, when it comes to sequels, as you've heard in most recent, Bob Iger says they're slowing down on some of these sequels and things like that. How long until you get a sequel? We've heard in the most recent reports from Daniel RPK that right after this, that they're going to try to, do the Midnight Suns film. Is that going to be somewhat of a sequel for the Blade film? How long until we see Mahershala Ali as Blade again? How long until we see him as Blade the first time? So those are my thoughts on what's going on with Blade. These are the most newest reports coming from Daniel RPK and Jeff Snyder, two very credible insiders, and now other credible sources are starting to also share these stories, share these reports. But question is always for you guys. Let me know down below in the comments what you guys think. What are you thinking of the newest reports coming out about Blade? Do you think that we are ever going to see Blade? Do you think that Marvel really is prioritizing this film? How do you think Mahershala Ali feels? What do you think about Marvel's lack of use or lack of priority of using characters of color? Let me know what you guys are thinking. Like, subscribe, share with your friends, and I will see you guys in the next video.